Master the essentials of SearchQuery and SearchGroup in SOSL to power up your data searches like never before. Welcome everyone. In today's session, we are going to talk about SearchQuery and SearchGroup. So without wasting any time further, let's proceed with the video. So in text searches, we use SearchQuery basically to search for any specific text in name, email, phone, etc. field. So in the last video, we have already discussed about. Today, you should know that these text searches are case insensitive. So it doesn't matter in which specific case you are mentioning those texts to be searched. And when you are using Apex, you can even bound variables for these text searches. So today we will also see how we are going to perform SOSL query in Apex, and then we will see how we can bound variables for these text searches. In SearchQuery, we can include a single word or a phrase, we can use wildcards, or we can use operators. Now these wildcards and operators are definitely optional, but it completely depends on you whether you want to use them or not. Operators is something that we will see in detail in a separate video, but we will certainly see the rest of the thing over here. So what are we waiting for? Let's move on to our org and see all those things practically. So guys, here we are on our developer console. Now you remember in the last session we have used this SOSL query. Today I'm going to use the same SOSL query over here, but this time with code. Now how to do that? So for that I'm simply using system.debug and I'm providing this whole SOSL query inside it. Now before doing that, make sure that just like SOQL, this whole query should be inside this pair of square brackets. So let me paste it and close the whole statement with a semicolon. In fact, let me keep it in separate lines so that you can actually see the whole code together. So here you go. So right now you can see with the help of system.debug, I'm just trying to print it out, but it will show me an error. One of the reasons for the error is this pair of braces that we are using with the search query. Now, if you are writing down the search query in the query editor, that's completely fine. Braces should be used over here. But if you are using it inside Apex code, then you should use this pair of single quotes. Now, instead of those curly braces, we will use single quotes now, and let's click on execute and this whole code will work. Now there is no error. But how we are going to work with so many records? Because if I am executing it direct, let me show it on the query editor. So if I am executing it directly, here you can see it is returning me 3 different objects. Each object is having list of records, right? So it is actually returning me list of records. That's what it is going to return me. And that statement contains the answer. So instead of holding out, generally what we do is, whenever we perform a so-called query, we hold the result in a list of records, right? And when we want to make it more generic, then we basically use list of SObject. SObject is a generic for Salesforce objects, generic class for Salesforce objects, right? So here I am writing down result. But this result is interesting because this time it's not just a single list of records. In fact, it is list of records, right? So what I will do is, I will keep this whole list of SObject inside a list itself. So let me just cut it. Let me create a list, and within the list, let me paste this list of SObject. So now I am finding edge in all fields, fine, returning it from account, contact, lead, and opportunity. That's it. Now if I will simply execute it, it will run, but I'm not doing anything with the result. That's why it is not doing anything, right? So what I will do is, I will just iterate over the list of SObject, right? That's what I'm going to do. So what I will do is, I will just simply have a loop that will return me a list of SObject. Okay, so let me name it as res or res, and I'm iterating over result. And then I will have one more loop which will return me basically an SObject, which I'm calling as rec, and I'm iterating it over res. Okay, now to make it more interesting or to make it more meaningful, instead of result I am calling it as records. So now what I will do is, I will just try to print this rec. So if I am just simply printing the rec, whether it is working or not. And once all the rec is getting printed, then I will add a separator. This time a separator with double line, and inside the inner loop I will have a separator with single lines. Done. Now all that I need to do is click on execute. Now let me show you the output. So you can see first it printed account, then a single line, and then there was no account. It moved on. The second contact, there were two contacts which are separated with single line and then double lines, and then there are four opportunities. So basically I just tried to show you that how you can use these kind of statements, or how you can actually write down an SOSL inside an Apex. Generally we don't need to, and generally in real life we don't use it, but still if you want to. Now if I want to pass a variable name as a search query, I can simply do that. So let me create a string variable as var and mentioning here edge itself, and now instead of passing edge I am simply passing var over here. Let me try to do that, colon var, and let me try to execute. And this time you are not getting any value. So what's the problem over here? The main problem over here is you try to bind the variable, but still you are using these single quotes. So when you are binding the variable inside SOSL, don't use those single quotes, because the variable is already having them. The value of the variable is already having them, right? So now you can directly pass this, and now you can click on execute. And if you will see by clicking on debug only, now you are getting the result. So you can even bind variables in the search query, right? Now these can be single words or collection of words. For example, I can search for proper tutorials, which is actually a phrase. Let me try to see. Oops. Let me click on debug only. So yeah, there is an account with the name proper Salesforce tutorials, not exactly proper tutorials, but yes, it is returning me result accordingly. So I can certainly provide phrases. I can use wildcards. Now if you remember, we already studied about wildcards, so I can use percentage. So let me use proper percent, that's it, and execute. So it will give me similar result. You can see that, because when I'm using wildcard percent, it means any number of characters afterward, but I can use underscore as well to represent a single character. So now it means proper and then a character just afterwards it. Let me click on execute now and debug, and now you can see there are words afterwards it. It is kind of a free text search or full text search, so it is giving me value now. But if I'm using it with help of some operators, definitely it won't give me some result. I will talk about those operators later on, but definitely now. So let's quickly go back to the slide and see what's next waiting for us. Now we can use objects and fields, and objects and fields are optional, but still I recommend you to use those objects and fields. So after returning, we actually specify these objects and fields. Now it is the information to return in the search result. So we are actually asking them like, what are the information we are looking for in the search result, right? So of course, if any information is present for that specific object, if no information is present over there, it can't return you anything. Now objects and fields are a list of one or more objects that you can mention. With each object you can mention list of fields also over there. If you miss to mention any field, or if you don't mention any field, then in the result it will provide you the ID if any result is there, and that's what I mentioned. If I talk about search group is optional. It is the scope of the fields to search if not specified. Now where is the search group in our query? If you remember, when we mentioned in all fields, that is nothing but a search group. So we can mention all fields as a search group, or we can mention name fields, email fields, and phone fields. So if we are mentioning in all fields, then it will search for all of them, name, email, or phone. But if we mention in email fields, then it will look only in email, right? So search group is also something that you can mention over there, but I recommend you to go for all fields for most of the SOSL query. Now that marks the end of this video. See you soon in the next video. Till then, thank you and take care.